Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher. Alright, weekly debate, or more to the point, what the fuck am I reading? What am I reading? The gear changes in Warlords of Draenor. Now, I was very excited about this, especially the item squish and sort of reworking of the items to drop certain stats. Kind of didn't like that hit, expertise, dodge, and parry were being given the boot. But okay, I can let it slide, you know? I mean, I'm not that bothered. What? Who does Blizzard think plays this game? And how is this new system, this new intricate system, better? I just don't get it, and I feel like an idiot because I've read this thing 100 times. I've been on about 5 different forums reading opinions, and I just do not get how this system is better. So, if you're not sure what I'm talking about, there's a huge post by Blizz explaining the new gearing system in Warlords of Draenor. And the idea is, items will be interchangeable between specs, the main items. So, your chest piece, your legs, and whatnot. If their example is a Holy Paladin, but let's say you're a prop Paladin, and you've got this wonderful piece of tanking plate, that if you switch over to Holy, that the strength, etc. on the item will then become intellect, and you can kind of use it for the same thing. And also, if it has a gem socket on it, that will still be only tertiary stats, as they're called, secondary stats, as they're calling it. There's no way you can gem for primary stats, so you can't have an intellect piece gemmed with strength. That's not going to be able to happen. It will either have haste, crit, or mastery in it, and therefore you should be able to swap specs and simply use the same gear that you had, besides things like weapons. Obviously, if you're going to be a two-handed warrior, for example, you can't be using a sword and shield. That actually is kind of nice, I guess. It kind of takes a little bit of the fun out of building up your secondary spec. I always kind of enjoyed that after I got best in slots, say, on my DK. If I got best in slot in my DK, I had full heroic gear and he was done to death, and I started working on my tanks. I always found that kind of fun. Now you'll just be able to interchange between them, which is actually great for a lot of mid-level players. That would be actually cool. So at the face of it, that sounds fine. That sounds absolutely fine and dandy. Haven't got a problem with it. That kind of makes a lot of sense. I just have to pick up a couple of rings maybe and some weapons, and I'm good to go with most of my specs. Hell, from my point of view, if someone playing every single spec in the game, that's brilliant, right? One of the big problems I have is trying to get some moderate amount of gear on every single spec. You think of an elemental shaman or whatnot, I have to get a lot of gear for that guy in order to bring you a guide that makes some kind of sense. So, then the problems start. Is this is going to be random. So what we're actually going to get is drops that are like of the bear and of the monkey. Yeah, they're going to have random secondary stats attached to them. Also, because of the fact that this item is interchangeable, everybody who wears that type of armor can roll on it. Wow. How do they not think that is going to create a problem? I mean, how many leather wearers do we have in a raid? And one of the good things about that is, you know, if some leather intellect piece drops, that instantly halves the amount of people who want that item. Hell, it's already hard enough when, say, a Guardian Druid wants some item off the rogues and whatnot. It always creates some sort of little bit of, ugh. Stupid rogues. That pure agility trinket is actually really good for me. With the crit proc. Yeah, it's great for you, but it's also good for me. Now we're going to have a case where a piece of mail drops, all the hunters and all the shamans and whatnot, they are like, well, we can all use it, and that includes the healers and the casters. Leather the same. Oh yeah, all the rogues, the druids, the monks, everybody's going to want that item. Piece of plate drops, the pallies, holy or not, doesn't matter what they're doing, they can all say, put a claim towards it, and it's now based entirely on the random secondary stats that are on there. Which could be, it could take you absolutely forever to get an optimal piece of gear. And when that optimal piece of gear drops, people are going to be clamoring for their fucking souls for this item. If you keep getting items that are mastery crit, and just the way the stats work out is across the board is actually haste mastery is far better for the majority of plate wearers, including the casters, might I add, then that particular item, when it eventually drops, is going to be great. And until then, most of you are going to be stuck in secondary crappy gear, because there is no reforging. We can't modify this piece of gear. There's nothing we can do about it. So first of all, that seems to create an enormous gear allocation problem, and it also seems to drag out the process of getting gear. It's already kind of annoying that a lot of people are waiting for Heroic Warforged. It's one of the biggest complaints I get is, yeah, I've got pretty much best in slot, but I need the Heroic Warforged version to drop. Then I can start upgrading it with my Valor points and whatnot, and it's just an entire pain in the ass. This system seems crazy. absolutely crazy that these items are going to be random in stats, random in nature, and up for grabs by everybody. It doesn't matter what spec or role they're doing. And then they've thrown in this Diablo 3 style stuff, which I actually don't mind. Which is having these sort of secondary stats may include several new stats, which, you know, game speed upgrades, or they call amplify, readiness, multi-strike, which we can assume is just some sort of passive cleave, I would expect. That's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. Now, moving down to where it gets really, really weird, and I have to wonder what the actual fuck. It's the examples where they're trying to explain how the system will work. They've gone through all the tertiary stats and the secondary stats and whatnot. A Holy Paladin has a raid tier set from the Blackrock Foundry. If she switches to a Retribution spec, the tier set is actually still functional. It will switch from the Holy or whatever to the Retribution. The primary stats and set bonuses change. However, if she prefers Haste for a Retribution spec and Crit in her Holy spec, as is someone who enjoys the game to min-max. Now, I want you guys to note the absurd use of the phrase min-max in this game, in this entire paragraph. Then a single set of armor might not be optimal. Well, probably not. Probably not if I change from Holy and just change talent specs to Rets, despite the fact that I now have some strength gear, but it's entirely built around the idea of being Holy, and I have things like a one-handed caster mace and a shield. Probably isn't the most ideal set. So, then they give this example, which I just find is the most baffling thing in the world. The trinket this Holy Paladin is using is almost useless for Retribution set, as it procs on heals. And then they go to say this. A more casual player would probably be fine just using the trinket anyway. Yeah. When on this earth did casual player now translate into complete fucking moron? When did that happen? When did we start using the word casual to translate into massive idiot? I'm just going to use my healing trinket anyway, for the lols. What? No, that you can't just look. What? What is this? A more casual player would be fine using the healing trinket anyway? Are we suggesting this is to kill 2 or 3 mobs out in the real world? And then they say, almost indicatively, they point out that if he's not using that, then he's probably more of a min-max player. Min-max does not mean that you are using healing trinkets, right? You are not either min-max or not because you're using healing gear and caster weapons to try and do Retribution DPS. Let's get that abundantly clear right now. That there's the difference between an average player and a min-max player is not somebody who is using healing trinkets instead of DPS trinkets. That is absolutely the craziest thing I have ever read. That is massively baffling and just so stupid. They would a more min-max player, yeah, somebody who is min-max to the hardcore would probably want separate rings, cloaks, trinkets, next pieces, and weapons. A very min-max player, such as someone competing in World First Mythic Raid progression, might even want different heads, shoulders, and chests. Yeah! I would say that the actual average player would want different head, shoulders, and chests if the pieces that he has for his healing set are absolute dog shit. Because this is a game where if it's not optimal, it's dog shit. That's how it works. What the fuck is this? What is this? And then on top of that, you're now saying that we're waiting for extra gear to drop in this completely random pool of secondary stats that actually suit 2 of our specs, perhaps 3, perhaps 4 in the case of the Guardian Druids. Wow. This player might even swap out gems between the 2 specs. What? Are you saying that only the cutting edge players would swap out a gem? Would swap out a gem if they were going to be raiding on their secondary talent spec? And it was not optimal to be carrying some crit gem when your main stats are Mastery Haste. You have to be a cutting edge player to realize that and to re-gem. This player might even swap out gems. But bear in mind, this guy is somebody who's competing for World First. A world first gear, a world first player might swap out this gem. It's possible I'm just overreacting to the initial reading, but this whole system sounded great at first, but this sounds awful. And the way they are describing the player base is insulting, I think. This feels insulting. That a casual player would be so fucking stupid to turn around and say, no, my trinket's fine, but it's a healing trinket. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine because I'm casual. Don't you understand? It's just a game, guys. I might as well walk around naked for the sake of carrying a healing trinket. What are you doing? I hope there's some more work to be done on this. I really do. This seems so convoluted. The whole random secondary stats thing, I know it's a more Diablo style of play, but how many times in Diablo 3 where gear is dropping everywhere? Let's not mistake how often and how easy it is to attain levels of gear. Certain items in Diablo 3 when they're random stats and they're useless. How many of them have been disenchanted and just gotten rid of? Do you not foresee that happening in WoW? Because the secondary stats are so much less? Debate it away, guys. Let me hear your opinion. I'll see you later.